Without further ado, I want to say thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight for In Conversation Creating Collectively. And this conversation, it's featuring artists from the 2021 Windsor-Essex Triennial of Contemporary Art. So for those who may be new to the Triennial, the Windsor-Essex Triennial of Contemporary Art, it's the AGW's signature group artist exhibition, and it's focusing on contemporary art practice in southwestern Ontario, Windsor-Essex, and Detroit. So before we get further into the conversation, I'm going to first start with our land acknowledgement. And of course, this is something that is important to keep in mind during the course of this event, but also important to carry with us even after the event has concluded. So while this conversation and recording is happening digitally, today I want to acknowledge that I am physically situated on Anishinaabe territory, the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi. Today, the Anishinaabe of the Three Fires Confederacy are represented by Walpole Island First Nation. And I and we at the AGW want to state our respect of the historical and ongoing authority of Walpole Island First Nation over its territory. All right, so now just to give a bit of an overview of what we're focusing on for this year's Triennial of Contemporary Art. We're focusing on the theme of conversations. So we were interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and we at the Art Gallery Windsor were all forced to rethink and reconsider how we can keep having these critical conversations that really matter to our community, even at a distance. But despite this uncertainty, art practices continued, getting richer and more varied as artists adapted to keep critical conversation active in such an unprecedented time. So as such, the Windsor-Essex Triennial of Contemporary Art set out as a starting point to see what artists in Windsor-Essex and beyond were talking about and why. So tonight, we'll be diving into one of those conversations with our curators, Ray Cronin and Lucas Cabral, and artists from Three Collective. We have Jessica Rachel Cook, Boyd Harris, and Julie Ray Tucker. So I'm going to introduce Ray and Lucas, and then I'll hand it over to them to get our conversation started. So Ray Cronin is a Nova Scotia-based writer, curator, and editor. He is the author of 9 books, including John Grier Hard Thought and Maud Lewis Life and Work. And then Lucas Cabral is an artist, curator, and arts administrator with a background in marketing, communications, and community engagement. Lucas completed his BFA at Western University and has since held positions in public art galleries and service organizations, including at Harbourfront Centre, Macintosh Gallery, the Robert McLaughlin Gallery, AIDS Committee of Durham Region, and Art Site Inc. So, with all of the rapturous Zoom applause you can over the chat, please join me in welcoming our curators and our artists tonight. And I'm going to kind of recede into the background for now and hand it over to Ray and Lucas. Over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Abby Lee, and welcome everybody. Thanks for taking part tonight. I just want to quickly start by introducing, giving a little background on the artists in Three Collective. First, Jessica Rachel Cook is an OG Cree whose family is from Constance Lake First Nation and Bekejwanong First Nation, and is from the Wolf Clan. Jessica works with traditional and contemporary mediums, including photography and multimedia. She's also an educator who enjoys outreach initiatives with local communities and group art projects. Boyd Harris is an artist from the Six Nations Reserve. He is of the Seneca Nation and is from the Wolf Clan. Boyd's work reflects his cultural heritage, and his work looks back at the effects of colonization and tells his story of the strength and resilience of First Nations people. Julie Ray Tucker is a Windsor-based artist, curator, and cultural worker. She is of Lenape and settler descent from the Munsee Delaware First Nation. She has exhibited and curated exhibitions across Canada and in Scotland. Her most recent project, This Is Not a Phase, is on Vukavu. And these are quite edited versions of the biographies of these quite accomplished artists, and there's will be certainly be more information on the gallery's website. But I'm hoping that this is just about the last that you'll be hearing from me, except as I prompt a few questions. And what I wanted to get the artists to talk to each other about, or what I'm curious and interested in hearing them talk about, is the idea of working together collectively. I think we have this idea of artists working in their studios as this solitary activity, and you've all chosen to work together in a unit as a group, where with all of the attendant complications and challenges and rewards from that. So I think that's the way to start. How did Three Collective come about? How does it work?
So I think we all really have a passion for the process, and for me, my background, I had the opportunity to learn how to make men's traditional regalia with my ex-husband, and I helped create my son's when he was a baby. And during that time, I was also attending my Bachelor of Fine Art, and I was really interested in upcycling found objects, and this idea that First Nations folks are resilient, and this Indigenous knowledge can be passed on through generations, and the process is very much the same, just the materials change. So Boyd and I work in very similar manner, using very similar objects, and remembering that from our undergrad. I'm still thinking about some of the work that I was creating for our grad show, and again, thinking back on that, I wanted to get back to that and recreate traditional objects, artifacts, and contemporary material, kind of like this post-apocalyptic idea that First Nations folks have survived so much. We've overcome lots of different forms of genocide, from smallpox to residential schools, and I witnessed a lot of basically injustices, things in different sectors, systemic racism in my family, and so forth. And so, I was thinking a lot about, again, traditional regalia. And for me, it was this breastplate I created using found materials and so forth. And at that time, I was really interested in working with shells and so forth. And so working with the group, we're bringing what we're familiar with and our passions and things that we really wanted to continue to work on. And so collectively, what are some of our similarities? What are some of the themes that we all are kind of addressing and would like to work with? And so, and then the topic of protection came up when the Triennial was first introduced. And, for me, that's really important. Seeing how all of the systems that are in place in mainstream society are there to help us, such as the medical system, the judicial system, and so forth. But yet, if you're First Nations, these are actually designed to work against you. So for me, the breastplate, is this metaphor, symbol of resilience, and using these new materials in a traditional manner with old methods was the process for me. And perfecting that process, I think, is where I'm at. And to work together with Jules and Boyd, we all have similar experiences, and we would like to in turn address some of these issues that will help us, or speaking from my point of view, would help me in my kind of road to self-discovery, and who I am, and how my culture is important to me, and some of the stories that I'd like to tell through artwork. So, one of, I think that the common themes for us was, the use of materials and telling these stories. And we have a lot to say together. And, when we do get together to discuss, the different ways of presenting it, we have lots of ideas, and it's never a dull moment. And as Jules mentioned, we get to have a bite to eat, and we go for walks and hikes and so forth. And we've just had a lot of really great experiences together. And we do include a lot of research. We've gone to Six Nations, we've checked out the church there. And, before COVID hit, we had lots of different trips lined up, and we were going to take a trip to Muncie and, visit Jules's family, and then take a trip to Six. And, COVID hit, and then we had to work from home. And so we've made the best of it. And, we do try to get together as much as we can. And I'm a little out of town, so these guys can get together a little bit more. But again, it's about trust and dedication. And these guys are hard workers. And again, we all work. So, we make the best of it. And I don't know, a little winded there.
Maybe you talked about your use of materials, but maybe you guys could talk a bit about the materials you've chosen to use in the work that's in the Triennial.
Okay. Well, for me, I know, like Jessica said, that we were back in our undergrad. I'd always been really interested in working with metal and non-traditional materials, and at first I had it was all about discovery and how to work with materials, and I really got into sculpture, and I really liked the idea of metal and using metal, like found metal, whether it be pipe, wire, stuff like that. So I did an initial breastplate that weighed about 100 to 200 pounds, using just regular pipe and other found metals and other found materials. And that one wasn't so successful in my mind, but I really enjoyed the process of finding the material, working with the material, using it in a way where you can put it all together without using any sort of fastener, just with what you had. Kind of like the way our people would put something together traditionally, or the way our ancestors put it together, without any type of fastener or screws or welding or anything like that. So as time progressed, I wasn't working with Jessica at the time. She had created a different breastplate, which is a little more upgraded from the one that I had done, which was, I guess, mostly made out of non-traditional materials like computer parts, other pieces of metal, and it was all, there was no leather, there was no sinew, there was no real beadwork or anything like that. And I really thought that was a great piece, and but yet it was still heavy, because I got towards the point where I was like, I want to try and wear this thing. So the piece that I have on display is a lot lighter. It's probably maybe 30 pounds now, and you can wear it. And so what had to happen was I used some traditional materials and some non-traditional materials, but I didn't manipulate it to the point where I had to create a bullet, or the only manipulation I had to do was drill holes, and that's a whole nother story there about drilling holes for this. For these
I like when Jules tells that story.
Yeah, so maybe I'll let Jules tell that story.
Well, just imagine, we have the whole summer to work on stuff, but then we decide that we're gonna drill holes in metal in mid-winter in the garage. So we're just mostly making voids, we're using the drill press at first, and yeah, and then we like broke it's my husband's, and then we broke his like the handle off or whatever. But and I was like,
Yeah.
and I always like,
Yeah, this was in the middle of winter too, though. So.
oh yeah, like whenever he uses tools, it breaks stuff. Anyways, he's a machinist, so he just like machined a new like handle. He didn't care. But yeah, and then we used like this, like one of the pieces that I worked on in the show is a cast aluminum bowl. So it was kind of funny when we were like drilling, like, you know, drilling the holes into the shell casings. So they were spent shell casings. We were just like putting like the hot metal into like the aluminum bowl as we went along. So we were always like filling this bowl up. That you'll see in the exhibit.
We were gathering.
Gathering the shells as we went along.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, we kind of skipped a bit there about the seeds. Yeah, go ahead, V.
This is the video of us that we were talking about with Ray, like where we're just
exploring.
We're exploring on in Bucktown, Moravian Town. And this is Jessica's back 40 or whatever.
Oh yeah, and it's full video.
we're just showing like dumb photos of us like being together and thinking of
like, our brainstorming session.
Yeah.
There you go.
The sound is just like Boyd directing me so I don't like fall into a ravine, basically.
So this is a very special place. This is the home of the Lenni Lenape. This is my son's home and his dad's. And I'm lucky enough to be a guest here and stay with my son. And this is the beautiful Carolinian forest that's in the back here. And Jules is Lenni Lenape. So, you know, I think it's really important that we all visit places of our ancestry and kind of like, you know, have a sense of place and respect for the land. So we go out in the back and we explore the different plants back there and whatnot, and go for little hikes. And it's just beautiful back there. But, you know, they have their own history here as well, and we're mindful of that, and it's just nice to be able to, you know, participate in some of the ideas, or I guess you could say legends. There's rumored to have like little people back there, so you know, it's a very safe, special spot, and you know, my son has no intention of ever you know, disrupting that beautiful environment. So it's really it's a beautiful place, and it's nice that we have the opportunity to get out there every spring. So we're just waiting for it to dry up and the ticks to go away. And hopefully Jules and Boyd can come up and we can work on our, you know, next project together, and have some time out there to reconnect with the earth and just take a breather from all of this, really. Oh, and I should mention, we didn't mention the part about the process, you know, why we use shells. So again, speaking about like this post-apocalyptic idea, you know, First Nations folks use seeds as beads, different types of seeds, and corn seeds and so forth. And corn cobs were used to make the bone pipe that were used traditionally in the breastplates in the plains. And, you know, thinking about what looks similar to that, the bullet shells are very similar to the bone piping. So, you know, we're thinking it is available to us now, and what's there a lot of. So being, you know, economically efficient, you know, what's the best way to attain, because we need hundreds of these things to produce these plates. So we thought the best thing to do would be to go to shooting ranges, and we actually bought buckets of these things spent, and then we had to clean them. And I apologize, my dog is chewing my cords here. He's never done this before. Yeah, we went to shooting ranges and bought those, and then as Jules mentioned, her husband was so gracious to let us utilize his working his tools, and Boyd was nice enough to have mastered punching holes in them quickly, or we would still be there. Then we got hip to purchasing brand new ones. So you will notice in the show, there is a combination of, you can't tell now because we buffed them so well, but there's a combination of brand new shells in there and spent shells as well.
That's just a shot from the studio that
Yeah.
we had to acquire a studio to finish this piece because it was quite big and it was COVID. So we were lucky to find a space in Windsor so that we could work safely together.
Yes, so very grateful for those
That
folks.
could definitely been an issue.
There you go. That's me working on it while I was working in the shop.
Can you tell us a bit about the weaving that we saw in the last image? Is it blankets that's made from?
Yeah,
Oh,
so I guess the story on that is I had started with the bull first, but then like we were thinking of this idea of protection, and I wanted needed to put the pole on something, and I had I'm part of the Muncie Delaware History and Language group, and so we go to Muncie Community Center about 4 times a year before COVID, and we learn like crafts, and we learn our language. And so I had learned some basket weaving, black ash basket weaving, and learned that process. So the weaving just a simple basket weave over a form. So that's like how you would make a basket. The blankets, obviously like a form of protection. And I tried to choose like military kind of grade blankets. Their wool, I'm actually really deathly allergic to this project. I have to wear a mask and gloves. It's sort of weird. Yeah, like I'm really allergic to, I would have not survived the earliest 20th century.
Jules suffered for her art, definitely.
I suffered,
yeah.
But
yeah, but there's a lot of irony in that though too, right? That's a spin-off from the smallpox blankets. Those are the same types of blankets they used back then, right? So there's a little bit more history involved in that, and the irony of that being protection, and it was supposed to keep them warm when it actually led in something terrible.
Yeah,
so quite relevant to today.
Before COVID, I had a plan to go with my mother and my husband to Fort Pitt, and also this town on the way in Pennsylvania where the Moravians were massacred. It's a horrible, horrible story. And I didn't know this until I started working on this project, that the blankets were given to the Lenape and the Seneca people. So I just found that out working on this project, and the connection to this area with general, like the town of Amherstburg, that's named after the general.
Change your name.
Well, it's just this connection to the land that I'm on, and as just like this research and learning the language, learning my language has helped me feel like a sense of place and belonging that I didn't have before, I guess, even in Windsor, technically. So
yeah, I think through this like whole process, like of this collective 3, like we got to really learn about one another, and that's what kind of made it easier for us to work together. I think after we learned about each other's story and how similar or not similar they were, but the stories behind how we grew up, or the stories that were told from like from our grandparents, or and which relates to all these pieces, because there's a story within a story about, you know, maybe the materials we used, or a story about the actual piece that we've designed, or, you know, where it came from, and why we use the word protection and where that led to, and just those ideas, and you know, we learned a lot about one another while making these two this piece, and you know, and that was, you know, surprisingly the fun part, like, because, you know, at first I was very hesitant about working in a group because I didn't want to relinquish, like, you know, any you know, I guess any, I don't want to say power, but any artistic I don't know what word I'm looking for, but you get where I'm going with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's such an individual, because it's such an individual thing usually. So
yes, yes, he's our stoic one.
We just make him do the things that we don't want to do, which is like drill.
Basically. I do all the grunt work.
We can't really.
I'm gonna bribe him. But I think that's one of the bonuses, is that we all have experience working with lots of folks, and you know, collectively working with other folks, and I think our time together is where we kind of get to put that away, and I think we listen to each other and we come up with ideas, and sometimes we're in serious conversation, and some of our best ideas, I think, come out of, you know, humor, making light of situations, but are, you know, pretty clever, and you know, and then from there starts uncontrollable laughter, and then the ideas start pouring, and we have lots of ideas, and hopefully, you know, we have opportunity to, you know, continue to work on not only this project, because this one technically is not done, and we like to offer more to that as well, but we also have other ideas and work of our own that I think everybody has on their plate that they would like to do as well. So just imagine of you know, managing our time, really.
What do you, when you say that this project isn't done, what do you have planned for it?
Who would like to take that one?
Well, I guess I can. Well, during the creation, I guess, or yeah, I guess creation of these breastplates, we figured out that there was different ways that we wanted to display them or show them, and I guess in the gallery, with the way it's displayed now with the 3 red stripes, that was one way. We originally wanted to create these shadow boxes or frames for the 3 pieces, but you know, time constraints got in the way, and you know, some materials weren't readily available right yet, because you know, the price of wood went up and stuff like that. Yeah. So there was a lot of searching for certain things that weren't readily available at the time. So yeah, so there's a few ideas that we still want to research with the way that these breastplates are shown. So
I think that's a really good point too. It's like relevant, like the whole idea of like resilience and utilizing materials that are available. We're in a pandemic, and here we are with limited resources. You know, resources have gone up in price and so forth. So it made us reconsider and think outside of the box, and think about, you know, what are other ways to like contain something basically what shadow boxes, is to preserve and contain these breastplates. So what are other ways we could do this without a physical box? And we were thinking about, mentioned rays of light came up from the ceiling and so forth, and we weren't sure about the space at the time, but being familiar with the galleries, we were thinking, we wanted these breastplates to have presence and kind of command attention, I guess you could say, so to speak. And, I think when I think about my ancestors, they're just saying that our ancestors are always walking behind us. I like to imagine them as like these tall, entities or whatnot, or celestial beings or whatever, right? So like thinking about these breastplates, and each one represents us, so to speak. What's another way to represent that? So thinking about what breastplates were used for traditionally for protection and in what circumstances, whether it be war or ceremony. Red is a very sacred color for ceremony and whatnot, and stripes are very symbolic and have a lot of meaning for face paint and so forth. So for me, I wanted to decolonize that white wall, and I wanted to really indigenize it, and what a better way to do that than with these beautiful, giant, very symbolic red stripes, I think. So that's kind of like my take on it, guys.
I love the red stripes. That's all I can say. It just I think it was, yeah, like even now the red is a really, like, for personal reasons that I won't get into, is a very significant color. Like that color, it speaks to like my grandmother for a very specific reason, and it's just like she's there in the gallery. It's like pretty moving. So yeah. That was a good choice. Good choice. But I think we
Yes.
definitely want to make the project, we want to make the project could grow. And then also, as like people who are, sculptors, we would definitely modify the project to fit like a specific space. So some of that might come into issue. We could have made the space,
So 2 more plinths.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like to add a plinth in front of each plate.
Yeah, I just kind of nixed that idea because I was like, I'm too allergic at this point.
Yeah, so we're looking at other weavable materials. Yeah. and more plates as well. I mean, for this show, I think additional plinths and maybe weaving, but I certainly would like to see us develop more breastplates as well. And I've have my own ideas, and then together we have our ideas of what we'd like to do in future. So I'm really looking forward to creating some more of those as well, and new materials. I won't say what yet though.
Well,
we'll save that.
It does seem like the way how you've arrived at making these, they have a lot of ability to expand and to change, and that was one of the things I was going to ask. It's with 3 artists and 3 breastplates, whether that was done and you're moving on to something else. So it sounds like no, you're going to keep thinking about that idea and working it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, to speak to that, like it was always for me, like I wanted to recreate it or redo it again, because my first version was kind of really rough and I wasn't really happy about it. But I knew that over time I would, think of other things to use, and I just really wanted to stay away from the traditional kind of materials. But as I seen Jessica's piece, and then I was like, well, maybe I should try again. And I came up with the piece that's there now. But I thought that, well, maybe if I use some traditional materials in it, I can achieve it being light enough to wear, which I did wear it for a while there. not not on public, just tried it on a few times, and it had some weight to it, and but I actually made it so it could last, I guess, enough to wear it a few times and stuff like that. So it's got some strength to it. Well, mine does, but
I'd like to add to that, B.
Go ahead, by all means.
So part of the process when so we have collectively created 5 breastplates now, and during the process of creating, as Boyd mentioned, we've learned a lot of things. So we started off creating them traditionally where it's created with 1 strand, literally. So 1 strand. So Boyd's, I believe, was the first attempt at that. My very first breastplate was horizontal. So I did mine horizontally for my beads, where Boyd's, I believe he did that in 1 continuous piece of sinew, wasn't it? Yeah. So then we learned from our mistakes based off of weight distribution and so forth, and sinew has give and what I'm saying. It gives, right? And so it stretches, and we have to let these actually sit and settle for a time so we can see how much our sinew has stretched out. And then from there, we decide, okay, moving forward, are we going to continue with sinew? Are we going to a synthetic sinew? Are we going to go to a vinyl synthetic? Are we going to go to a plastic? So we're experimenting with different types of strings and so forth that hold these together. And, in some cases, I've used copper wire and aluminum wire. So again, it's just using different materials. And, ideally, it was nice to try to do it traditionally, but after that breaks, it's a little harder to recreate it. So we've learned to be able to take these sections out, and if anything happens to them. So a lot of learning.
Well, I'll speak to that a little more. Well, in the creation of Julie's, hers didn't involve sinew, and it has a lot of different elements and materials to it. So we ended up using like a heavier thread. So hers is actually a lot more delicate, but a lot more heavier than Jessica's or mine's, because we actually wore that one too for a hot minute. But it's that hers has got some weight to it. So hers is, I would actually say, is probably really, really delicate. And I do believe that we designed hers that if it did need repair or something broke on it, that each strand was just done in one single strand of thread, basically. So if it did actually fail, we could go back and fix 1 strand, because if it was 1 continuous strand, the whole thing would have fell apart and it would have been very difficult to repair. So there was some thought put into how to, I guess, replace and repair it if it did fall apart. So that was my biggest worry with Jules' piece. So yeah, so that was fun.
Well, we've reached the end of the slideshow, and there's been. Thank you. First off, this conversation has been fascinating, and the next thing we'd like to do is offer the opportunity for some of the people who are watching us to ask some questions themselves. So let's we're just getting. We don't have a question yet, but Zarina Mendoza, who's one of the artists in the show, just wanted to say that it's so nice to see everyone, and that's. I think you all can read the chats, but if people want to ask questions, I'll read them out. I don't know. Otherwise, Jessica, you promised you'd be hard to not to stop talking when we did this. So if you want to say something more, please go ahead.
Well, we have so much we could really talk about. We've done a lot of research. So for example, to get familiar with working with the bullet shells, Boyd and I actually took a firearms and small handgun course, and were certified. So to learn more about the materials, we're really putting the time in there. So that was, I believe, 2 full weekends that we did that, and I believe Jules has some professional sniper experience.
Sniper. My grandma could like shoot like I'm just gonna say she didn't really use a gun, but like an air rifle, like she could shoot things like from her hip. I feel my brother teaches people how to shoot in the military. I just have it in my blood, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I just found it was a good idea to work with to find out how powerful like this experience was, like with learning about handguns and what the power behind it, like a bullet and stuff like that. So you kind of get a feel for what that is. So that was fun.
Right. Yeah. So it's, we're really, I think, confronting, I wouldn't say fears, but like, some of the things that are used against us per se, right? Like when we talk about, peaceful protests or activism work or so forth, we're going in there with good intentions and peacefully, and yet these things are continuously used against us, and it's ironic that it's the people that are supposed to be there to protect you. So, we're looking at things, I'd say it's a two-sided coin. And our work, having these experiences of living in the city, and here for myself living on a reserve, traditional ways of life are really important still. The language, hunting and fishing, old ways of hunting and fishing are still very important. And they were very important to my ex-husband. And I had the opportunity to see how they hunted and fish and so forth. And I think it's really important that we learn to keep these methods alive, and not only traditionally, but what happens if those materials are gone? How can we use what we have? And again, for me, it's about resilience and survival, and just being really ingenuitive. Let me get my own
Ingenious.
We
have a question here. So Christopher McNamara, who's one of also an artist in the show with you three. His comment is that how does the process of working alone and then working together sort out for you? Time is precious, and I'm sure it's not easy finding time to be together.
I'll go on first one on that one.
Yeah, you should.
So for me, working alone is great and all. I don't have any problems with that. But when I start working with Boyd, and Boyd came up and we were working on his breastplate, for me, it was really frustrating to work with someone who was more skilled. And at putting this thing together, he was stronger and he could pull the wires through better and was faster, and he was faster with the hole punching. We did take turns. So I think, working together, you get to see, that you're not all that in a bag of chips, right? You get to like this humility kind of sets in, and this modesty. You get to sit back and be like, oh yeah, that's why I asked you. So, we need these supports.
Yeah, but not only that,
out,
you get to show
we have our own
people,
strengths.
You get to show people like what you learned from like previous projects, that there's probably an easier way to put something together.
Yeah.
And so that part right there, working together, like you learn something off of one another. But working alone, sometimes you just end up having to create it on your own, and then if you need insight or suggestions from your partners, you kind of have to wait on that. So sometimes it might take days or weeks on end to get your partners to actually see your work and say, hey, maybe you should do this or you should do that. And especially right now with the pandemic, like Jules and I were able to work together quite a bit, sort of with social distancing and all that. But and Jessica being away, she couldn't
send pictures.
Get into the studio. Yeah, yeah, we sent pictures back and forth. You're like, hey, you got to do
this. Does this work? Yeah. So that's how I communicate.
There were challenges, but you have to. There's a waiting game, I guess, sometimes there. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, Jules can take the last stab at that one.
I don't even know what to say. Like time is really precious for me, and there's so many projects that I'm working on. I'm writing grants for for learning the language and history, and working full time, and also just it's been like, I think for the pandemic I think I haven't slowed down at all, but I really appreciate studio time by myself and with other people. So I'm really lucky that I have somewhere to go during this pandemic. If anyone else has a studio space, they're so lucky.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, that's another thing about us working together. It's also an escape, I guess you could say. We're being creative, we're being productive, but at the same time we're getting back to, we're grounding, if you will. We're connecting with each other. We're taking a break from, all the pressures of work and so forth and home. And just, us being together is really a time for us to, like, I don't know, just be ourselves. And it's just very positive energy between the three of us. And we have a really good time and we laugh and, we just, I don't know. I think it's a really cohesive group. And, it's not to say that we may not work with other folks or whatnot, but I think we have a lot of discovery yet for us. So I'm really excited and looking forward to COVID being over. And if not, there's other ways that we are obviously adapting. And, we're resilient and we're learning from this and we're finding new ways to communicate and to work together. Now we've decided that, we're going to be actors and we're going to do some performance work. And so get ready for that.
All right.
I think you're constantly making me do things that I don't want to do. I think I would say it makes me feel.
Getting her out of her shell.
That seems to be Jessica's role with both you, Boyd, with you and with you, Julia. It's if I'm hearing that.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Well, listen, all of you, thank you so much for this conversation. It's really, Abby Lee's about to jump in, and I don't think there's any more questions. So I'd just like to say
thank you.
Thanks you and Abby Lee. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Ray, and thank you to you, Jessica, Boyd, and Julie. That was such a wonderful conversation. It was good I was muted because I was like laughing in parts and like agreeing out loud in parts. So thank you for your time and for those images that you provided. I'm going to share my screen one more time, as I just want to also highlight that that's not it. There we go. Although you get to see them one last time, that's great. So this is not the last conversation. In fact, this is only the beginning. So we do have 4 more conversations coming up with some of our other artists in the 2021 Triennial. So we have them on, they're all at 7 p.m. on select Thursdays until June 3rd. So as you can see here, we have And Repeat on Thursday, April 15th. We have History of Objects on Thursday, May 6th. We have Text in Space Speaking to Your Audience on Thursday, May 20th. And we have Extending Media on Thursday, June 3rd. So if you want to join into those, you can hop over to agw.ca/events or just agw.ca and register there. We'd love to have you. But until next time, we just want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we wish you a peaceful, long weekend. So take care, everyone, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Take
Good
care,
night.
everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Be safe. Thank you.
Yeah.